Broadcasting from the heart of the nation, the next generation in conservative talk radio. This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Why, yes it is. What is up, my friends? Hey, it's Friday. Pat yourself on the back, my friends. You finally made it. It is the greatest day of the entire week. You scream, I scream. We all scream for ice cream. We are ready to rock and roll for a whole nother one today, except for it not being National Ice Cream Day. You know what day that is. That's right. Apparently that guy, Joe Biden, who officially dropped out of the presidential race on National Ice Cream Day, apparently wanted to get back involved in politics. He wants to get back to fight the Donald Trump agenda, to be re-involved again and to revigorate the Democrat Party. Is that going to happen? Probably not, man. Probably not. Welcome into the show. There is so much to talk about. I was just literally minutes as we were about ready to kick off the program here, I was debating on what the priorities were to discuss today because there's so much, there's no way we're going to get through all of this. So we will do our darndest and have some fun doing it as well because it is a Friday, so therefore we need to have a little bit more lighthearted conversation, which leads us to our guest at the bottom of the hour. L.A. Marzulli will be on the program. He is the author of the book Rungs of Disclosure. We've had him on before. We're going to talk about disclosure of the government type. Are we getting the disclosure we need on the JFK assassination files and the UFO UAPs? He specializes in explaining some of these supernatural things that go on, which is part of our weird news of the day. Do I have, there it is.
Weird news of the day.
Thank you. Yeah, that's how we're going to wrap up a week on a Friday today. Why? Because we can, and it's lighthearted, and we like to have those types of conversations. So we'll do that here in just a little bit. First and foremost, though, speaking of things that are flying in the air during our
weird news of the day.
Yeah, the things flying in the air. Got to give a shout out to our friends over at Boeing. The Boeing company apparently locking in a brand new government contract with our latest news and what's trending.
What's trending today?
And I say my friends over at Boeing, not because I have any friends over at Boeing, but because being based out of Wichita, Kansas, the aviation capital of the country, where we are in the middle of the nation, we are the ones that essentially started aviation, and we build more airplanes here in Wichita, Kansas than anywhere else in the entire nation. With Boeing, with Spirit Aerosystems, which is a contracted company with Boeing, and many other companies that build aviation parts for NASA and for SpaceX and for the military and for Boeing and for commercial flights and whatever else. We're kind of the central hub where all of this stuff gets made right here in Wichita, Kansas. And the fact that Boeing has locked in this massive contract, how much was it? Well, I wasn't want to say like $40 billion or something, $20 billion. It was pretty impressive with how much they get. They are now creating the brand new fighter jet for the federal government's military. That's going to be dubbed as the new F-47, set to replace the F-22 Raptor. Designed now, the F-47, that's which I just pieced this together, ironically named as 47 for the 47th president with Donald Trump. That's kind of awesome. So the F-47 is going to be done by Boeing, as according to Trump, with a statement being made today, will be a, quote, state-of-the-art stealth technology, making it virtually unseeable. Saying, quote, it's something that something the likes of which nobody has ever seen before. Oh, sorry, I have to do it in the Donald Trump voice. We have to do
what Donald Trump really meant to say.
There we go. We got to do it in the Donald Trump voice. It's something of the likes of which nobody has ever seen before, quote unquote. That hat tip to, by the way, defensenews.com, saying according to the Oval Office announcement from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, they say that in terms of all the attributes of a fighter jet, there's never been anything done even close to it, from speed to maneuverability to which can have the payload. It's been in the works for a long period of time. So there we have it, the F-47. Apparently, it's going to be unseeable. It's also going to have artificial intelligence technology. It can be driven as a drone with remote technology through that AI from either a AI computer or an individual that's manually driving it based on being on location, kind of like a drone, or with someone actually in the cockpit, along with the other amenities as well. It's going to be really neat. We'll see what that looks like. I'm curious, as disclosure begins to come out, here's the conspiracy theory of the day.
Andy's prediction.
I know, a lot of different segments going on right now. I apologize for all the madness, but there's a lot of things happening. I'm curious, with all the disclosure of the UFO UAPs, we've openly admitted now, we've been doing different types of back engineering of different technology we have not been familiar with. What if part of that technology is being used now for the F-47 in the company of Boeing? That's very strange. We'll continue that conversation with L.A. Marzulli coming up at the bottom of the hour. I'm going to have to ask my brother, and he does not, nor does his wife, give me any information. But for those that don't know, they work not for Boeing, they actually work for Lockheed Martin, or at least his wife does. My sister-in-law, she works for Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin did not get the bid on this F-47 new fighter jet, but they've been working on some stuff, man. And I try to keep asking her, what do you know about the UFOs and UAPs? And they haven't given me anything. Nothing. I was like, bro, I thought we were closer than that. We're brothers. We're brother and sister essentially now by marriage. So you have to disclose this to your brother. Give me the inside scoop. Let me know what's going on. You guys work for Lockheed Martin. You make a lot more money than I do being on the radio with you two both being engineers. Hook me up, bro. And insist. Let me know what's going on. So far, no go on that one. So I'll keep trying. Any information I get, I'll pass along to you, as you know. All right.
What's trending today?
But I will say congratulations for the economy here in the Wichita area. I think it's going to be a huge boost with us probably making many parts for these fighter jets for the military with this near $20 billion contract the government signed on with Boeing to make these new F-47s. Really exciting. That being said, Donald Trump making it back into the news again. The media getting a bit snarky, man. They really aren't even trying to play nice anymore. They are so angry with what's happening in Washington, D.C. They're so mad at what Donald Trump's doing that they can't do anything about. They can't call on their Democrat colleagues to do anything about. They're just mad. And even though Donald Trump, being the most transparent president, honestly, I would say in modern American history, he has done more press conferences. He sits down with the media more than anybody else. While they're on Air Force One, he pops out and just talks to them. He talks to the media while he's signing executive orders. They have multiple press briefings a week now instead of Karine Jean-Pierre that comes out maybe once a week and then doesn't give us any information and then just reads off a script and then says that, I can't talk about that or I don't want to talk about that or I haven't even talked to the president of the United States. Donald Trump is the most transparent guy. Even if you despise Donald Trump, you have to admit Donald Trump is the most transparent president that's been in modern American history. And it's still not enough for the media, still not enough for the Democrats, still not enough for the progressives, which is why they're getting kind of snarky.
Do you think you have the authority, the power to round up people, deport them, and then you're under no obligation to a court to show the evidence against them?
Hold on. Before the answer, how much of a do you have to be? You're in the Oval Office asking the president a question. Do you think you have the authority to do what you're doing, deporting people, and not even give a reason for it?
Do you think you have the authority, the power to round up people, deport them, and then you're under no obligation to a court to show the evidence against them?
Well, that's what the law says, and that's what our country needs, because unfortunately, they allowed millions of people to come into our country, totally unvetted, totally unchecked. So you ought to ask, did he have the authority to allow millions of people? Did Biden have the authority to do something that's unthinkable? Have open borders where millions of people poured into our country, totally unvetted and totally unchecked, just as you would say. And many of those people were criminals. Many of them were from jails and prisons and mental institutions and gang members.
And we're done with it. He's not dealing with that anymore. By the way, mic drop for that one. Well done. Well, of course I have the authority. The law says I do. And what kind of authority did Biden have to ignore laws as the executive branch and allow individuals to just waltz right in here? That right there. That's why. That would be why, my friends, Donald Trump still has a massive approval rating, and even a large number of individuals continue to support Donald Trump, Doge, and everything that's going on, except for apparently the new headline that the media is trying to run right now. This one was off of Drudge Report, which, again, Drudge Report... Drudge Report showing that people that did not vote in this nation in the last election, the people that don't vote or did not at least vote in the past election, 84% of them despise Donald Trump and don't like his agenda. But you didn't vote. So do you really have a voice, or do we even care what you have to say? If you don't have your voice in the public sector, or at least make your voice heard by showing up and voting, then who really cares what you have to say, right? According to the poll, they show that 85%, 84% of Americans that didn't vote disapprove of Donald Trump, with roughly 12% saying that they do approve of Donald Trump, and a few that are indifferent right now. But again, if you're not voting, I don't really care what you have to think, because if you're not part of the system and you're not part of the dialogue and the conversation to understand what's going on, you are probably not up to date on understanding exactly what's going on anyways. So it doesn't matter. So that's their nice little poll to say, oh, the one poll we found that was negative against Donald Trump are people that are just completely out of the political system altogether. And they have to do it because they're getting snarky. They don't like what Donald Trump's agenda is, and they can't stop it. I want to read a litany of lists here. Just go down part of the list of what Donald Trump's doing right now in the past week or so that they're just losing their minds over and they can't do anything about. Between dropping immigration individuals illegally coming into the country by like 98% at the southern border, doing the mass deportations without being held accountable and explaining your reasoning, even though they're domestic terrorists, they're evil individuals, they're gang members, they're criminals that have been creating ridiculous crimes that we're deporting out of this nation. And she has the huevos to go out there and be like, do you think you have this authority? Then we have the freezing of DEI funds, a.k.a. freezing funds that go to higher education because these higher education institutions refuse to end their DEI programs, which led to one of the headlines on Fox News today.
President Trump has promised to protect female athletes. He has threatened to rip federal funding away from any university that defies his executive order banning biological males from infiltrating women's sports, and he is doing it. We are the first to report that President Trump has paused $175 million in federal funding from the University of Pennsylvania over its controversial policies. A senior administration official telling Fox Business that this is just a taste of what could be coming down the pipe for Penn, a proactive punishment from the president to pull back discretionary spending going to the school from DOD and HHS.
Nothing they can do about it. Nothing Democrats can do to stop them. Be like, hold up, you can't freeze that funding. Why? Well, because you have no authority to do so whatsoever. Ending the Department of Education yesterday through that executive action, executive order of essentially not ending it, but at least making it null and void to where it's a shell company so Congress can actually fully end it, as we talked about yesterday. Hopefully we can pass Congressman Thomas Massey's bill to fully close down the Department of Education and not have to appropriate money to it any longer. Ending the DEI at these universities and continue to try it on, including ones here in Kansas and elsewhere about, wherever you may be listening to this. And headline today as well, Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, ending massive amounts of DEI in her administration.
Say what?
I know. Now, I want you to think about that for just a moment. It's the Department of National Intelligence. It's gathering information about potential threats around the world or even here in the U.S., gathering that intel to see who's a possible threat that could harm the United States in an attack or want to harm somebody or whatever the case is. The Department of National Intelligence, where would DEI have a place in that whatsoever? But there was, according to Tulsi Gabbard, and hat tip to Breitbart News for this one. They've now eliminated DEI offices and staff, saving $20 million just by ending the office of DEI in the National Intelligence Agency. Scrapping unnecessary conferences, which saved near $3 million per year, ended unnecessary program licensing because of DEI that saved us near $1.5 million a year, removed redundant cloud contracts, saving $1.1 million a year, and ended never-ending training programs for DEI in feel-good types of programs that were near $3.4 million a year. All DEI, all unnecessary, and again, just like Doge, we're barely scraping the surface of what's going on here.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier. When reason meets radio. This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
There are those who believe that we are in real time living through an assault on the constitutional order. Do you believe that we are in a constitutional crisis right now?
Yes, our democracy is at risk because Donald Trump shows that he wishes to violate the laws in many, many different ways. The good news here is we did put 235 judges progressive judges not under the control of Trump last year on the bench, and they are ruling against Trump time after time after time.
So apparently Chuck Schumer openly admitting, yeah, we put some activist judges out there, 235 of them to be exact last year, knowing that Donald Trump was more than likely going to be president, and we were going to stop this agenda so that way anything that he does, we can't stop him. But now we have the courts to try and drop it here, to slow it down here, put the red tape over here. That's all we're going to do, baby. We can't actually do anything productive on our own way to advance civilization, but we're just going to obstruct Donald Trump because it's a threat to democracy. I'm curious. Show of hands. I know if you may be driving, be relatively careful, but you can roll down your window and raise your hand as well. Show of hands. Is that rhetoric working? Does that propaganda still work for you to be like, wow, Donald Trump really is an authoritarian. Donald Trump really is a Nazi. He really is a Vladimir Putin puppet. He really is some type of dictator or Hitler himself. Is it working? Because they haven't let up. I really thought I got to be honest, I gave them a little bit more credit, which I probably shouldn't have done. I gave them more credit than what I thought, because I figured that by now they would have learned their lesson to try a different tactic, and it hasn't worked. They haven't done anything else. So the hits, one after the other, the only way they have it is be like, oh, thank God for our activist judges that don't actually interpret the Constitution, but really just slow down the Trump agenda, because that was the reason why we put them on these courts, and the sums of near 235 of them last year. Going back to the DEI, the Department of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, our Director of National Intelligence, openly ending much of the DEI programs there. This is just scratching the surface of what's going on in D.C. I keep wondering, where did all the money go, right? This whole... We went from 20% of the GDP to 120% of the GDP, went from like a $2 trillion budget to a $7 trillion budget, went from, this mass amount with this omnibus spending that we've done since the middle of the Obama administration. Where could it possibly go? And apparently we found out exactly where it's at. That being said, DOJ is having a hard time getting into certain agencies. They are now working with the Department of Defense. That meeting happening today during the announcement of that F-47, by the way, that Pete Hegseth and Elon Musk met, and that DOJ will be beginning to work through the Department of Defense, cutting out many of the administrative high-ranking military officials, because we don't need essentially as many chiefs and less workers. That's the system that we've had. We need to fix that to where we have more workers and less chiefs, and we don't need a whole bunch of like 3-star and 4-star generals not doing anything. We need actual soldiers fighting boots on the ground to, I don't know, keep the country safe. So that's going to be changing majorly, and DOJ's working on that one. One issue that we've apparently come across is now the Social Security Administration, where the headline that I've seen shows that the Department of Government Efficiency has now ended and canceled over 2 million recipients, and I say recipients in air quotes, 2 million recipients that were labeled as over 150 years old in this nation that were still receiving Social Security benefits.
Say what?
2 million of them. Now, I have not done the math on this, but could you imagine, I don't know, how much is Social Security every month? Let's say like $2,000, $3,000 a month per individual, times 2 million of them per month, and then times that per year. That's a lot of money going out fraudulently, wastefully. And where's it going is what we want to know. Democrats, the courts, part of those activist judges, now putting a block on the Social Security access that DOJ has, and now apparently the Social Security administrator threatening to freeze and shut down the agency altogether until they allow access for DOJ to come in and figure out what other fraudulent spending may be happening. The deep state battle continues, and it's kind of wild to watch.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier. Truth, reason, and common sense. This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Tim Walz is now saying about Trump supporters, and forgive me, I'm just reading a quote from Tim Walz, I think I could kick most of their ass.
Oh boy, he'd be in trouble.
Is there any way to know?
Well, he's a loser. You know, I mean, the guy's a loser.
I mean, that's so good. I love it. Donald Trump, man, the ultimate troll. Well done on that one. It's so great. I love watching it. All right, let's shift gears away from politics. There's a lot to talk about. Obviously, today there is all the news from the Trump administration, the ending of DEI initiatives, DOGE, the F-47, which is, to me, really neat. And again, I got to say congrats to our friends out at Boeing for getting that contract, living in Wichita, Kansas, the aviation capital of the country, making more airplanes than anywhere else in the nation. We have so many companies around here that contract with Boeing that work with NASA, SpaceX, and the commercial airliners and everybody else making these planes, that this is going to really boost the economy. That's exciting to see. And the new innovation from this F-47 that leads me to my
weird news of the day.
Where are we getting this technology? There's been rumor of the reverse engineering of certain UFOs and UAPs from the government, which now we're getting with some of the disclosure that we're getting out of the federal government. And if that's the case, are we implementing and utilizing some of that for the latest F-47 fighter jet, which I think is really neat. On the same front, really quickly as we get to our guest here as well, did you hear the two astronauts that came back from the International Space Station? Thanks again, Elon Musk. Media didn't say that. We did. But they won't say that because they don't like Elon Musk right now. But with a SpaceX that came up and grabbed the astronauts, came back down, that was supposed to last like 7 or 8 days, ended up lasting 9 months. The question was, how much were they going to be compensated for being stuck there almost an entire year when they were only supposed to be there a week? According to Newsmax today, they say that NASA is only paying them their regular pay, which is like $150,000 a year, and a $5 per diem pay for the 286 days that they were there. So that only leads up to like almost $1,500 additionally on top of their regular pay. Dude, I'm just telling you, if I were stuck in a space station, as cool as that would be, and I'd be totally content being stuck up there, but if I'm planning it for a week and I have to survive 9 months, I'd like a little more than a $5 per diem per day to be stuck up in space. I'm just throwing that out there. Man, let's get it. There's a lot of stuff going on from that and more. Really happy to have on the program to talk about all of this as we go through a Friday. He is the author of the latest book, Rungs of Disclosure. It's been a while since we've had him on the program. L.A. Marzulli, how are you, my friend?
Andy, great to be here. How about yourself?
Yeah, doing great. Great to chat with you as well. I got to ask, I mean, $5 per day diem, whatever, for the NASA astronauts up there. I would be asking for a bit more compensation if I were them, wouldn't you?
It is so insulting. It is beyond the pale. I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
I mean, and if it wasn't for Elon Musk, they wouldn't be back.
That's exactly.
Just
yeah, NASA had no intention of doing it anytime soon, so who knows how long they would have been up there if it wasn't for Elon Musk. Wow. Donald Trump did say, however, that if he has to pay them extra out of his own pocket, he's more than willing to do so as well. So, again, that just shows.
Do the right thing, Donald.
Do the right thing.
That's our president.
That's exactly it. I love it. There's so much I want to talk to you about because last time we had you on, I love talking the supernatural. I love talking these weird
news of
things.
the day.
And now, finally, LA, we are getting to the point. We're finally starting to get some disclosure. We have Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna that's working on the task force for massive disclosure on a lot of information, including Congresswoman Nancy Mace, who's been on the subcommittee, who openly got the government to admit, or at least portions of the government, to admit that we have UFOs and UAPs. We have what they're calling the biologics that drove and controlled these UFOs and UAPs.
Yes.
We're finally starting to get information here. This is kind of exciting.
Well, I mean, it is and it isn't. It's exciting in the sense that we're getting some level of transparency, but I think it's stunning when David Grush, and you mentioned Nancy Mace and Anna Paulina Luna. Nancy Mace is questioning David Grush. David Grush is a whistleblower. Yeah. He's under oath in the halls of Congress. And Nancy Mace asks him, do we have crash craft? And Grush says, yes, I've already stated that in my News Nation article. Do we have bodies from these crash craft? And David Grush goes, yes, we have retrieved biologics.
Yes.
And then Nancy Mace sits in her chair and looks at him, are these human or non-human biologics? And he says non-human. So we are off to the This is the coming great deception. The UFO phenomenon is absolutely real. The first rung in the book, Rungs of Disclosure, was Commander David Fravor talking on Tucker Carlson, stating on the record that whatever this thing was that he encountered, this tic-tac-shaped UFO object over the Pacific, was not from this earth. That's a groundbreaking statement.
Yes.
And Commander David Fravor, you mentioned the contract that I think Boeing just got. I mean, this guy's flying an F-18. This plane costs millions of dollars. This is not Elmer Fudd in the cockpit who's had a little too much to drink or something. This is the best of the best of the best that we have. This guy's flying an airplane which costs millions. And he states on the record, on Tucker Carlson, that whatever this thing was not from this earth. So they're rolling this thing out. And in the book, we only have 17 rungs. We are now up to rung 20. The book came out in October. So it gives you an idea that we are climbing the ladder of disclosure. The problem is that I have with it, these are not, in my opinion, extraterrestrials from some faraway galaxy. They are interdimensional entities with a very nefarious agenda. Let me explain real quickly. Is it okay to abduct a 5-year-old boy without his parents' permission and implant him with some sort of a device? Is that a good or bad thing? And I ask that, and it's not a rhetorical question. I ask it at conferences. Never a hand goes up. Maybe there's one or two, in the course of like 10 conferences, somebody will go, oh, that sounds like a cool thing. and there's actually a movie now by Disney called Ilio, and this kid wants to be abducted. He wants to. We just did a program with him today. He wants to be abducted. That will more than likely be yet another rung on the ladder of disclosure because they're spinning this like this is some good thing. Excuse me, it's not a good thing.
Yeah.
When you're taken against your parents' will as a 5-year-old boy, which Emil Jurek was as a 5-year-old boy, okay, and implanted. So that's not a good thing. We took out the implant 40 years later. Emil was 45 years old.
So we actually took the implant out, so we have the implant in our possession?
Yeah, we do.
Do we have any information on it? What does it look like? What does it do?
We do. It's all in our film. It was in Watchers 10, but we took the implant out. We analyzed it at Seal Lab. It's made out of basically meteorite metal. Where did they get that from? It's meteorite metal. It's got some other properties into it. And that implant we could cut with a razor knife. This is the work of the late Dr. Roger Lear. But that's 40 years ago.
Right.
The implant that Dr. Roger took out before that, whatever this metal was, it was so hard that they couldn't cut it open. They had to take it to a laboratory and cut it open with a laser.
Interesting.
So there's an evolution of these things.
Yeah.
And I propose that these are about the size of a grain of rice. These are the prototypes to what we read about in the book of Revelation. That mark that you get, that's what these are, in my opinion.
That's an interesting concept. So it sounds like their technology, whoever or whatever this may be, their technology's grown as well. If it was able to be cut before and now it's not able to be cut normally, so their technology's growing with ours? That seems kind of strange when you think that they're so advanced that they'd already have all the stuff laid out.
Well, they do have some of the stuff laid out, but remember, they're putting these implants in people, and they want to see how the people react to them, right? And there's an evolution of these things.
Sure.
I believe it's the mark of the beast. You remember the mark of the beast. You can't buy, sell, or trade without that mark.
Right.
So how does that work? It's got to have some sort of. And you remember this thing is written 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Buy, sell, or trade without the mark. This is why the Book of Revelation was so closed. I'll be at the Prophecy Watchers Conference next weekend in Orlando. And I'll be talking about this very thing. How do you get a one world government, a one world religious system? What is this mark of the beast? And we think that this is a prototype of it because these entities have spent an inordinate amount of time and resources to develop these implants. And they're connected to the human body through the nervous system, not the circulatory system. We know that for a fact. At least the one that we took out was connected to the nervous system. And there's no entry wound. How did that happen?
Yeah, that's really fascinating. I was not aware of that one. So do you believe then as well, there's a theory that President Eisenhower back in the day in the 50s ended up making an agreement or some kind of compact with these entities, ETs, whatever they may be, in order for us to gain more knowledge of technology and of the universe and allowed them, these grays is what they were calling them at least then, to be able to abduct a certain amount of individuals. Do you believe that actually happened then?
I do. That's the stuff of UFO lore. I've known about that for decades. It's becoming more mainstream. The short answer to that for me is absolutely yes. There was a quid pro quo. Eisenhower goes missing. President Eisenhower goes missing for 24 hours? How does that work?
Yeah.
Oh, he's got a toothache. It's emergency dental.
Yeah.
Nice cover story, guys. Your nose is growing. I give it 5 Pinocchios, okay? So there was a quid pro quo. That's the stuff of UFO legend. I do believe it happened. I believe the contract has ended. And this is why we're seeing the abduction phenomena go absolutely through the roof. They are creating hybrids, and the hybrids can pass. Now, let me just, because I only got a few minutes with you. When you read the prophet Daniel, chapter 2, verse 43, this is what it says. Their seed will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not cleave to them. So who are they talking about? Yeah. Who are they? Can't be men. Their seed is mingling. This is why the Genesis 3:15 narrative is so paramount in our understanding of the rest of the biblical prophetic exegesis, because when we look at all this, when we look at the way it dovetails together, and as the late Chuck Missler used to say, it's an integrated message system. And you go to Daniel 2:43, their seed will mingle with the men, but they will not cleave to them. Seal up the words of the book, Daniel, till the time of the end. Men and women will run to and fro over the face of the earth. Knowledge will increase. We are here. Yeah. That book was sealed up now in modernity.
And it's all unfolding. L.A. Yeah, no, L.A. We got to take a hard break here, and I know you got to run, my friend. I could talk to you about this for hours. Let's get you back on, and let's do it again real soon, my friend.
All right, take care, Andy. Bye.
I love it. Always a pleasure. Rungs of Disclosure. Go check it out. We'll break some of that down when we come back for the last segment of the show. Right around the corner for a Friday. Stay here.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier. America's safe space for common sense. This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
There is such an irony to Democrats talking about oligarchy because, of course, for every one billionaire that backed President Trump, Kamala Harris had 2. 9 of the 10 richest counties in America are represented by Democrats. 65% of Americans making over $500,000 a year today are Democrats. Meanwhile, President Trump absolutely crushed with Americans who make under $100,000 a year. The Democrats are the party of the wealthy.
Now, that's a great point. That was from, I think that was on Fox News or maybe CNN. I don't really know who exactly that was from. But the oligarchy, there's a tour right now, if you haven't seen it. Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
I am told this is a garbage disposal.
One of my most favorite people that's out there. That's a joke, by the way, for those that may be relatively new to the program. Yeah, we like to pick on her. She's kind of the low-hanging fruit. They are trying to be the new front of this new tour of oligarchy, trying to push back against the Trump administration, which I will say that is honestly a smart move. You know, you're not working because the positivity of what Trump's doing is still working, but to go to the grassroots, to actually campaign on and off campaign season, to talk to people directly, that is a smart thing to do. I would like to tell you, hey, Democrats, I know Democrats, yeah, you guys, if you don't want AOC and Bernie Sanders to be the front runners and the leaders of your party, you might want to get out in front of this because right now they're the ones doing the groundwork. You're not. So there is that, right? Well done, Democrats. You continue to fail. Well done. But the idea and concept of the oligarchy is a little bit ridiculous as well. Thanks again, by the way, to L.A. Marzulli, Rungs of Disclosure. I can't wait to read the book. I want to get his documentary as well. I did not know that they actually were able to find an implant on someone that supposedly from, again, if you believe it or not.
Weird news of the day.
Yeah. I did not know that they actually had in their possession an implant that something, whatever you believe that may or may not be, was implanted into a child and then was actually taken out. And them studying these things, that is very interesting to me. Now, I did not think in putting into this perspective of the mark of the beast from the Bible and from the book of Revelation as the mark of the beast being a ET implant. I don't think they've done that to enough people, so unless we just don't remember it, we all have one and we're just not even aware of it, but I don't think that enough people have that. If that's the case, then we have a long way to go for everybody to get chipped, right? I mean, there's how many billions of people on the earth? So that's an interesting theory. I've not heard that one. I still slightly disagree with his assumption that all of these ETs or beings or whatever they are all the evil demonic entities. I don't believe that's the case. Personally, I mean, you can believe whatever you want to. It's all speculation because we just don't know. But I truly believe that there are good ones and bad ones out there, right? There can't just be all of them being evil, all of them being bad. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Nothing is always just completely evil or completely bad or completely good. We live in a world of duality, like the yin and the yang thing. There's mostly light with a little bit of dark. There's a thing of dark with a little bit of light. There's always that duality. That's why we have female and male. And those that try to get rid of the concept of the duality, of the positive and the negative charge of a magnet, the male and the female of the biology in this world, if you try to get rid of all that and just say one is just purely this or one is just purely that, that doesn't make any sense to me. To me, that doesn't work. And I think that goes as well with ET races or whatever you want to call them, interdimensional beings or extraterrestrials or aliens or demons and aliens or demons and angels. I think that many of them are one or the other, and that there's a mixture of them up there. That's my personal opinion. Again, you can take that with what you will. But, I mean, we have multiple cases of the Bible talking about the chariot of fire descending from the sky and landing and talking to what they thought was God at the time, or what they thought was an angel at the time, and they described these beings. In fact, there's a story, and there's a documentary from a while ago, and I can't remember the name of the documentary, but there was two completely separate individuals, one from the U.S. and one from Germany. This is years ago, decades ago, where one of them had read a section of the Bible where it described the size and like the measurements of this craft, or what they call this chariot of fire, and he built it, and it was a UFO-looking thing. In Germany, there was another guy, 10 years later, that read the same passage but didn't create the craft, created the place where it landed and built it, not knowing each other had done this. And when they met, they placed the craft inside the structure of what it was supposed to be held to, and it fit perfectly. So if you read it, there are angelic beings that are potentially ETs, there are demonic beings that are potentially ETs, and you have to be smart to know which one is which and trust your instincts and be able to have a better understanding in your faith in that higher power, whatever that may be, in order to guide you through that. But this great deception is happening, but I don't think all of them are bad and evil, and I'm kind of excited to meet them. Got to be a lot better than the Democrat Party. See what we did there? We'll see you back on the radio Monday. Bye.